Hello and welcome back to the MBC Sports Podcast Season 3, Episode 1. My name's Andrew Sullivan, your host, joined today by Connell Scruggs, JP Eisenhower, and Andrew Feeney as the Georgia high school football season gets underway this week and Marist football gets underway next week. Today we'll be looking at Marist football schedule for the year, talking about COVID implications with region games, going through the 4A rankings, and then we'll take a trip to the games of the week this week in the state of Georgia. Connell, first game on Marist's schedule, Blessed Trinity. Very excited for that matchup next week. Should be a thriller.
Should be great, especially with the pickup of J.C. French by BT, transfer from Wesleyan. He's class of 22, so he's a junior right now. He's a 3-star. He can definitely sling it. He threw for about 2,900 yards last season for Wesleyan, played in the Class 1A state championship, and I believe lost to Eagles Landing in a tough game. That'll definitely make BT's offense pretty dynamic there. They got both Justice Haynes and J.C. French now. So it'll be a challenge for Marist, especially at their first game of the season, not getting a lot of reps in with their offense. It's going to be pretty much they're going in and giving it their best shot here.
Yeah, BT's really one weak point going into the season was quarterback, and getting J.C. French in there really is going to improve this offense a lot, and he's going to have weapons to throw the ball to also like Carson Haroff, but really this offense is going to go through Justice Haynes with J.C. French, I think, taking a little bit more of a back role than we might expect with the talent he has.
Yeah, and it's interesting as Blessed Trinity actually gets their season underway this week against Forsyth Central on Friday. So they'll have a game with experience with this new team getting J.C. French into the offense in a real game before they take on Marist, whereas Marist will have a new quarterback this year replacing Connor Sigelski, who graduated last year, and they won't have any real game experience as there's no scrimmages this year against other teams or anything with their new quarterback, and they'll have to go into the Blessed Trinity game with it raw. The good news is Marist's quarterback has been in the program, so they've gotten reps with him throughout the past few years. Andrew Feeney, Woodward next on the Marist schedule. Just 2 tough games in a row to start the year.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Woodward, they got a great team. They definitely have a lot of depth at the skill position. Their lines kind of are lacking, but I think what they lack in the line, they definitely make up for in their defensive backs, wide receivers. They have a lot of skill on that team.
And Connell, potentially 2 of Marist's hardest games to start the season.
Exactly. It's going to be, I think, 2 very different approaches, though, to those 2 games. BT being a lot more physical, a team that wants to go head-to-head against you, a lot, running the ball a lot. And then Woodward now this year with, like Andrew Feeney said, they got a lot of talent at these skill positions. They got running back Damari Alston. They have Kari G as a safety LSU commit, but their lines are not as strong, so it's going to be a little bit different in that Woodward game.
Yeah, and for Marist, as we continue to look through the schedule, Blessed Trinity on September 11th and then Woodward September 18th, both out of region. Both teams have moved up in the reclassification this year into 5A. And then those 2 teams are 2 of the top 3 ranked teams in 5A, so definitely potentially the 2 hardest games to start the year. And then Marist moves into a few easier out-of-region games as they take on Hampton at home on the 25th and then travel to Chapel Hill on October 2nd before they likely will get region play underway after a bye week against Hapeville at home. And Connell, maybe the hardest region game to start region play again.
Yeah, you're right, Andrew. Hapeville, 2A champion in 2017, moving up 2 classes, I believe, in the reclassification, like you just said. Only lost to Cedar Grove in Dublin last year, and Cedar Grove was the eventual champion. Very talented group. They have linebacker Xavier Carter, who's committed to LSU. So I agree with you. It's probably going to be the most difficult region game for Marist.
And then as we continue to move through region play, it'll be Druid Hills away on the 23rd of October, away at Arabian Mountain on the 30th, and then into November, on the 6th at home against Stevenson, on the 13th at home against Miller Grove, and then traveling to Mays on the 20th to finish out region play and the regular season, something that's going to be very strange playing the week before Thanksgiving in a regular season game. Usually you're preparing for second round and then quarterfinals around that time, but with the COVID-19 pandemic, games pushed back a couple of weeks and the schedule's just all pushed back with state championships, hopefully the weekend after Christmas. And we talk about this COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, Marist playing in a region. Marist is the only private school, five public schools, Arabian Mountain, Druid Hills, Miller Grove and Stevenson, all in DeKalb County, who has currently postponed play through October 1st. Hapeville is a Fulton County school who has postponed through September 14th. And then Mays is an Atlanta public school system who is currently not postponed. And Mays is actually getting underway tonight in the Corky Kell Classic. And it's going to be really interesting, JP, to see how these two school systems handle things in the next few weeks. And that could really play a part in what the Marist season looks like after those first four games.
Yeah, I really think it's going to be huge. When you look at the advantage of being able to have more time to prepare and more time to have practice and more games under your belt. Because when you look at going into a season, your first game, you have more penalties, you have more mistakes, you have miscalled plays. Your first game really is a trial where you have to iron out those mistakes. And when you start so late in the season and you have so many changes, sometimes you could make a lot more mistakes, and those teams could end up really suffering from that.
Definitely. And another thing to point out with these region Marist is playing in is most of these teams are actually not from 4A last year. Marist playing with a bunch of teams that got reclassified as Arabian Mountain, Mays, Miller Grove, and Stevenson all down from 5A, Hapeville up from 2A. The only two teams in the region that were in 4A last year, Druid Hills and Marist. But definitely a difficult region for Marist as we switch into these 4A rankings. If you're looking at the AJC rankings, Marist and three other Region 6 4A teams are in the top 10. It's going to be a crazy hard region schedule, and Marist probably playing in the hardest region in 4A yet again.
Right, and if you look at last year, teams in the region like Flowery Branch, Blessed Trinity, Denmark, made for a tough region. And after the reclassification, Marist might have hoped, they got a little bit better of a draw. But nope, you're going to have to face four of the best teams yet again, four of the best teams in one region. But the good thing about that is you're playing great competition. So when you get into the playoffs, you're a little bit more ready for the competition you'll face in the playoffs and ready to go a little bit deeper.
Definitely. And as we take a look at those AJC 4A rankings, Marist sits atop the rankings at number 1. Jefferson up from 3A last year, number 2. Bainbridge down from 5A last year, number 3. West Lawrence, Flowery Branch rounds out the top 5. Flowery Branch, a team that Marist played in the region with last year and will know quite well if they do face them in the playoffs. Troup County at 6, Stevenson in Marist region at 7, Hapeville and Mays at 8 and 9, also in the region, and then North Oconee rounds out the top 10 of the AJC rankings. Definitely some different teams from last year, as some of those top teams in BT and Woodward got knocked out.
Yeah, I think definitely a team to look at, though, is Jefferson. Jefferson has a 5-star quarterback. He's listed as an athlete. He's definitely going to be one of the top players in the region. He's a 16th ranked player nationally and the number 3 ranked athlete. His name is Malachi Starks, and he's definitely going to be one of the top players in Georgia this year. He's currently the 2nd ranked player in Georgia as a junior.
Right, and they got a lot of talent coming back, too. They had 8 all-region players last year, and all 8 of them are coming back. So Jefferson, definitely a stacked team that is jumping up a couple classes. So they may be overlooked in that way, but you can't really overlook Jefferson.
Yeah, luckily for us, we don't have to play them in the regular season, but going into the playoffs, assuming we both make them, I think that Jefferson will be a huge potential competitor for us.
And the other team to look at in those regions that might be the biggest threat of them all, if we're looking ahead to the playoffs, is a Bainbridge team down from 5A, was always a competitor in Class 5A, and now they move into 4A and could definitely play a part in the 4A playoffs this year.
Exactly. Bainbridge had a little bit of a tough year last season, going 7-4, but they did win a state championship only a couple years ago. And Quade Hawkins, he's got the school record for passing yards, and he's going to be passing. He's going to be a quarterback this season for Bainbridge. And if Marist happens to face them in the playoffs, you really hope they don't get the away draw, because that team is about as far as you could get from North Atlanta in the southwest corner of the state.
Definitely would be an interesting trip to Bainbridge if that one played out in the playoffs. As we take a look at the GPB sports rankings for 4A, pretty similar, mostly the same teams. Marist, Bainbridge, Jefferson to start off, with Bainbridge and Jefferson flip-flopped from AJC rankings. Hapeville all the way up to 4th, Troup County and Flowery Branch, Westover, West Lawrence, Mays, and Carver Columbus, a team that Marist defeated but not very easily in the playoffs last year. As now we are going to transition into our games of the week this week. As I mentioned earlier, Mays playing in the Corky Kell Classic tonight. The Corky Kell Classic, a group of about 8 or 9 games over the course of the next 4 days, with great competition ranging from all of the classifications throughout Georgia. And that Corky Kell Classic features one of our games of the week on tomorrow, Thursday, at 7:30, McEachern at North Gwinnett.
Right. And this is an extremely tough game to pick here, because both these teams are very talented coming into this year. But I'm going to have to go with North Gwinnett here. They won a state championship a couple years ago. They have a linebacker, Barrett Carter, who's committed to Clemson. It's an AJC Super 11 player. And Bill Stewart, an extremely good coach for North Gwinnett. He's taken them to the quarterfinals at least in the last 3 seasons. But they will miss their cornerback, who is committed to Ohio State. He's chosen to opt out of this season. His name's Jordan Hancock. So that's the North Gwinnett side. And then you look at McEachern. They beat an extremely talented Marietta team last year, who ended up winning the state championship, and they won Region 3, who did contain Marietta. But they did lose a lot of players to graduation and some to transfer, but they do have a linebacker, S.A. Dubre, who is a Georgia Power 100 linebacker. So, very talented on both sides, but I'm going to go with North Gwinnett pulling it out here.
Yeah, Connell, I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm also going to take North Gwinnett in this one.
Yeah, I think the defense in North Gwinnett, their linebacking core is going to pull through for them.
And I'll take North Gwinnett as well. And that one will be interesting to see, as it's 2 7A schools, both in the top 10, with North Gwinnett at number 5 and McEachern at number 9. Good one to look forward to tomorrow. As I bring up a few honorable mentions for games of the week, that will be taking place on Friday. St. Pius at Flowery Branch. St. Pius up to 5A, actually not on the Marist schedule this year, which was a little bit of a surprise. And then Flowery Branch in 4A, I mentioned they're number 5 in 4A. This one is actually in the Corky Kell Classic, so it will be on TV. And that is because Mill Creek and Parkview were supposed to play, but Mill Creek had a football player test positive. They had to pull out. They took Parkview out of the Corky Kell Classic, and that's just an example of the way things could go this year in Georgia. Nothing's guaranteed, and you got to take it one game at a time and be grateful to play one game at a time.
Exactly.
Another good game to look forward to on Friday is North Oconee at Oconee County. Hog Mountain Road rivalry. North Oconee, the number 10 ranked team in 4A. Oconee County moved down to 3A after last year. They're ranked number 5. They knocked Marist out of the playoffs last year. That one should be a good one. And then Grayson, the number 1 team in 7A and number 1 overall in Georgia, in action on Friday as well at Jones County, a top 10 team in 5A. Grayson probably with too much talent to lose there. As we get back to one of our games of the week on Friday, Warner Robins at Valdosta, number 1 ranked team in 5A versus number 1 in 6A. Should be a thriller, right, JP?
Yeah, this one is one I struggled with a lot. I mean, when you look at Warner Robins and you look at their quarterback, he's probably the best player in 5A. But when you look at what Valdosta has, and especially when you look at the transfers that they got, including quarterback Jake Garcia, I don't see how they're going to lose this game, especially when you pair him up with the transfer receiver who had over 1,000 yards. I think Valdosta is going to win this game, but
Yeah,
not by much.
I think two very high-powered offenses, but I'm going to go with Valdosta.
I am going to go with Coach Rush Probst here and his experience. And I'm going to take Valdosta along with their two receivers that have over 1,000 yards each last season.
Yeah, Valdosta, the winningest program in Georgia State history. Hard to pick against them. And Rush Probst should be an interesting matchup there with Rush Probst moving in as the head coach at the winningest program in Georgia history after he had to leave Colquitt County a few years ago, went to coach in Alabama for a few years. Now he's back at Valdosta. As we take a look now at potentially the most intriguing matchup of the week in Georgia, one that just made it onto the schedule about 2 weeks ago. It's Woodward at Eagles Landing. Woodward, the number 3 ranked team in 5A. Eagles Landing, the number 1 ranked team in 1A private. Connell, who do you like here?
It's a very tough game for me to pick here. Another 50-50 matchup. Eagles Landing, extremely talented under Coach Jonathan Guess. He's done extremely well for them. They've been a very winning program. You could probably get the exact number, but how many state championships have they won in the last 5 years? 5 state championships. Wow. The last 5 years. Yeah, see, it's hard to pick against them, but, with Woodward's skill position players, they got Damari Alston, who ran for over 1,300 yards, and you got Kari G and Alan Walker in the secondary, an LSU commit and a Vanderbilt commit. It's hard to pick against them, although they do have a new quarterback, Bank Snellings, but I've heard he's a pretty good passer, so it'll be interesting to see how that game goes, especially because Woodward's lines are not as strong. But, with that, I'm still going to have to go with Woodward here in this game.
Yeah, the quarterback doesn't concern me as much. If he starts having an absolutely terrible game, you just turn around and hand it off to Damari Alston, and they'll still win this game. I think Woodward is going to come out on top.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's just the skill players I think outweigh their maybe gaps in the line. So I'm going to take Woodward in this one.
Guys, I'm going to go against all of you. I'll take Eagles Landing in this one. Connell, you mentioned some talented players at Woodward, but they do lose their star quarterback, Mike Wright, who graduated last year and went to Vanderbilt to play. That's going to be a tough one to replace for them, as he was basically half of their offense. And Eagles Landing also some losses there. They lose their UGA wide receiver Justin Robinson, running back Keaton Mitchell, who went to Eastern Carolina, quarterback Gabe Wright. But they do still have some talent there, and as Jonathan Guest, their head coach, likes to say, we just always have guys stepping up. Hard to pick against a team who's won 5 straight state
Right.
championships. I'll take Eagles Landing.
You can never go wrong there.
Nope. And we'll look at a few games, both in the Corky Kell Classic on Saturday now. Lowndes at Archer. This one, another fascinating one between two 7A schools. Lowndes, the number 2 ranked team in 7A, and Archer number 7. Lowndes coming off that state runner-up run last year where they lost to Marietta in the state championship. They do lose their head coach, longtime head coach Randy McPherson, to retirement. And Archer has 3 straight quarterfinal or better appearances, but they do lose their 3-year starting quarterback Jake Peavy. So I'll take Lowndes in this one.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm also going to go with Lowndes here, mostly because of one player, Ja'Curry Brown, the dual threat quarterback for Lowndes. He's got 1,500 rushing yards last season and 1,300 passing yards, as well as their linebacker core. They got T.J. Quinn, Thomas Davis, and Jaquez Hunter, who are all state candidates last year. So with those two and the loss of Archer's starting quarterback, I'm just going to have to go with Lowndes on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you both there, and I'm also going to go with Lowndes on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Lowndes too. I think they'll be hungry after getting the runner-up in the state championship. They'll want it all this year.
And another really fascinating matchup on Saturday in the Corky Kell is Denmark at GAC. Denmark all the way up to 7A with reclassification and unranked, while GAC is the number 6 ranked team in 3A. Feeney, who do you like here?
It's a really interesting matchup, especially with Denmark's big jump all the way up into 7A. But I think when you look at it this way, Denmark's star quarterback, Aaron McLaughlin, is injured right now. He's questionable to play. And you look at, even though they got a 3-star transfer from, I believe, Illinois, I don't think that that's powerful enough to upset GAC. I think GAC has a more consistent chance of winning this game.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I really like Denmark's offense, and I really like McLaughlin, and I do think he will play. But in the off chance he doesn't, I do trust the backup transfer, and I do think that they win this game.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with JP here. I'm going to go with Denmark.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with my man Feeney over here. I'll take GAC. I think if Aaron McLaughlin's out, that's going to be tough for their offense to gel. Bringing in a transfer quarterback from Illinois that they haven't played with until a few weeks ago. I think that will be tough going for them, a little bit of an adjustment period if McLaughlin's out. And GAC did lose a lot of their star talent, but they still do have 4-star Addison Nichols. Two-way lineman, look for him to dominate up front.
I also forgot to say, Denmark did also lose one of their star wide receivers to Auburn this year, too. So that's another factor that just makes me think GAC's got this one.
Yeah, Denmark lost Xavion Capers to Auburn, and they lost their running back, Jordan Brunson, to Virginia Tech. So if they lose Aaron McLaughlin, too, for this game, I think GAC easily. That'll pretty much do it for this week on the MBC Sports Podcast. Be sure to stay tuned for next week's podcast, as we'll take a more in-depth look at the Blessed Trinity Marist rivalry and the matchup for next Friday. We'll probably start talking a little bit of college football as well. Should be fun next week, but we do thank you all for tuning in and listening this week, and we hope to catch you next week on the podcast and on our broadcast of the Blessed Trinity matchup. On behalf of Andrew Feeney, JP Eisenhower, and Connell Scruggs, my name's Andrew Sullivan, signing off. Have a great week, everybody.